Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories, the forgotten frequency. I never believed in ghost stories until I became one. The decommissioned weather station sat perched on Blackwood Ridge like a forgotten sentinel, its rusted satellite dishes and weather instruments frozen in time against the backdrop of endless pine forest. When I first saw it through the fog that morning, I thought it looked peaceful, just another abandoned relic of Cold War-era meteorological science, left to decay when newer technologies made it obsolete. I was so goddamn wrong. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm a meteorologist specializing in climate data recovery. My job involves salvaging historical weather data from abandoned stations across the country, information that's become increasingly valuable as we try to piece together climate patterns. Usually I work with a partner, but Marcus called in sick the day we were scheduled to visit Station 81, and my supervisor insisted the trip couldn't wait. The equipment's scheduled for demolition next month, Janet had explained. This is our last chance to recover 50 years of atmospheric data. You'll be fine on your own, it's just an overnight trip. The station had been decommissioned in 1997 after budget cuts, but according to our records, it had been collecting data continuously since 1952. That's 45 years of potentially valuable climate information sitting on magnetic tapes and hard drives, slowly degrading with each passing season. I parked my Jeep at the base of the access road, where a chain-link fence marked the property boundary. A faded sign warned, "Government property, no trespassing." The padlock on the gate was so rusted I had to use bolt cutters to get through. As I drove up the winding dirt road, the trees grew denser, their branches forming a canopy that blocked most of the morning light. The first oddity I noticed was the condition of the access road. For a place abandoned over 20 years ago, it was surprisingly clear of debris, no fallen trees or significant overgrowth. I assumed the demolition company had sent someone ahead to clear the way, but that didn't explain the strange tire tracks that appeared intermittently, fresh ones, cutting through the thin layer of mud from yesterday's rain. The main building was a two-story concrete structure with small windows and a flat roof loaded with meteorological equipment. Two smaller outbuildings flanked it, one for the generator and one that had served as a garage. A tall transmission tower rose from behind the main building, its red aircraft warning light long dead. I gathered my equipment from the Jeep, laptop, external drives, tools, and my overnight bag, and approached the main entrance. The heavy metal door should have been locked, but it swung open with just a push. Inside, the air was stale but surprisingly dry. No mold smell, which was unusual for an abandoned building in this climate. The entrance opened into a small reception area with a desk and what had once been a waiting area with a few chairs. Beyond that was a hallway leading to various rooms, offices, a break room, and at the end, the main monitoring station. Everything was covered in a thick layer of dust except for one thing, a single set of footprints that led from the entrance down the hallway and into the monitoring room. I followed them cautiously, calling out, "Hello. Anyone here?" My voice echoed through the empty corridors. No response. The main monitoring room was a large space filled with old computer terminals, weather monitoring equipment, and data storage systems. The footprints led to the main console and disappeared. Someone had been here recently, and they'd been interested in the same equipment I was after. I set down my gear and began inspecting the systems. Most of it was standard for the era, terminals connected to a central server, magnetic tape storage units, and early hard drive arrays. What caught my attention was that the main terminal wasn't covered in dust like everything else. Its screen was clean, as were the keys on its keyboard. "What the hell?" I muttered, running my finger over the surface. It came away clean. I checked the power connections and found that while the main power to the building was off, this particular terminal was connected to a backup battery system that appeared to be functional. That was impossible. No backup battery could last 20+ years. Someone must have replaced it recently. Curious, I flipped the power switch on the terminal. To my surprise, it hummed to life, the green phosphorescent screen flickering with the boot sequence of an antiquated operating system. After a moment, a command prompt appeared. "Station 81 terminal active. Please enter access code." I tried the standard access codes we used for these old systems, but none worked. After the third attempt, the screen changed. "Access DNIED, unauthorized user detected. Initiating security protocol." The terminal shut down abruptly, but something else happened. A low hum began emanating from somewhere in the building, the sound of equipment powering up. Then one by one, the lights in the room flickered on. "That's not possible," I said aloud, my voice barely audible over my pounding heart. The power had been disconnected years ago. I'd verified that with the utility company before coming. Yet here I was, standing in a fully illuminated room while more and more systems around me whirred to life. Monitors flickered on, displaying scrolling data. A printer in the corner began spitting out paper. I approached it cautiously and picked up the printout. "Welcome back, Daniel Mercer. We've been expecting you." My blood ran cold. I had never been to this station before. No one here could know my name. I dropped the paper like it had burned me and backed away, bumping into the main console. The impact caused something to fall from on top of it, a logbook that had been sitting there. It landed open on the floor, and when I bent to pick it up, I saw the last entry was dated yesterday. The handwriting was messy, almost frantic. "It's happening again. The readings are off the charts. Something's coming through. God help us all." The entry was signed T. Wells. According to our records, Dr. Thomas Wells had been the head meteorologist at Station 81 until its decommissioning. He would be in his 70s now, if he was still alive. I flipped back through the logbook, finding daily entries going back months, then years, all in the same handwriting, all signed by Wells, but that was impossible. The station had been abandoned for over 20 years. As I stood there trying to make sense of it, a voice crackled over the station's intercom system. "Daniel, is that you? Thank God you're finally here. We need to shut it down before it's too late." I nearly jumped out of my skin. "Who's there?" I shouted, spinning around to look at the intercom panel on the wall. Its light was on, indicating an open channel. "It's Thomas Wells. I've been waiting for someone from the agency to come. Listen carefully, we don't have much time. The equipment needs to stay off. All of it, do you understand?" "Dr. Wells," I called back, approaching the intercom. "That's impossible. This station was decommissioned over 20 years ago." There was a long pause before the voice responded, softer now. "20 years, is that how long it's been for you?" A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean for me? Time works differently here now ever since we found the frequency. Look, just listen, you need to power everything down and leave, now, before sunset." "What frequency? What are you talking about?" The intercom crackled with static. "The anomaly. We detected it in 97 just before they shut us down. A weather pattern that wasn't a weather pattern. A frequency that..." Static interrupted him. "Coming through the barrier between, more static. They're using the equipment to..." The intercom went dead. I pressed the call button repeatedly. "Dr. Wells, hello." No response. Just as I was about to give up, all the monitors in the room simultaneously displayed the same message. "Don't trust the voices. Get out now. They're already here." The message flashed for a few seconds before the screens went dark again. The lights flickered and then stabilized. The humming sound grew louder. I decided I'd had enough. This was either an elaborate prank or something far worse. Either way, I wasn't sticking around to find out. I grabbed my bag and headed for the exit. As I reached the hallway, I heard something that stopped me in my tracks, the sound of the weather instruments on the roof activating. The rhythmic swish-swish of the anemometer spinning, the mechanical clicks of the barometer adjusting, the hum of the radar dish rotating. Then came another sound, a high-pitched whine that seemed to penetrate my skull, making my teeth ache and my vision blur. I staggered against the wall, dropping my bag as I pressed my hands against my ears. The sound intensified, becoming almost unbearable, then suddenly stopped. In the silence that followed, I heard something else, footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps moving across the ceiling above me. Someone or something was on the roof. I remained frozen, listening as the footsteps moved toward the access hatch that connected the roof to the second floor. Then came the sound of metal scraping against metal as the hatch opened. My survival instincts kicked in. I grabbed my bag and ran for the front entrance, no longer caring about the data or equipment. But when I reached the reception area, I found the front door closed and sealed. Where there had been a normal door handle was now a solid metal plate. No handle, no lock, no way out. I pounded on the door, then tried to pry my fingers around the edges, but it was sealed tight, as if it had been welded shut. Behind me, the footsteps had entered the building, and were now moving down the stairs from the second floor. With no other option, I ran back down the hallway, looking for another exit. I found a door marked "Emergency Exit" at the far end, but it too was sealed shut. Every window I passed was the same. What had appeared to be normal glass from outside was now revealed as solid metal plates designed to look like windows from the exterior. I was trapped. The footsteps were getting closer. I ducked into what appeared to be an old filing room and closed the door quietly behind me. The room was windowless, filled with metal cabinets and a small desk. I crouched behind the cabinets, trying to control my breathing as the footsteps passed by the door. They stopped. I held my breath, my heart pounding so loudly I was certain it could be heard through the door. After what seemed like an eternity, the footsteps moved on, continuing down the hallway. I exhaled slowly, then turned my attention to the filing cabinets. If I was trapped here, perhaps I could find some information about what was happening. I began rifling through the files, looking for anything about an anomaly or frequency that Wells had mentioned. Most of the files contained mundane weather data, but in the bottom drawer of the last cabinet, I found a folder labeled Classified Project Echo. Inside was a report dated March 15, 1997, just weeks before the station's official decommissioning. The report detailed the discovery of an unusual atmospheric phenomenon detected by Station 81's equipment. According to the data, they had picked up a frequency that didn't match any known natural or man-made signal. Initial analysis suggested it was coming from the upper atmosphere, but further investigation revealed something far stranger. The signal appeared to be coming from outside conventional spacetime. The scientists had theorized that they had accidentally detected a frequency that existed between dimensions, a sort of communication channel that connected our reality with something else. They had been monitoring it for months when they made a critical mistake. They attempted to respond to the signal. The report ended abruptly with a handwritten note. They answered back. "God help us," they answered back. The last page was a memo ordering the immediate shutdown of Station 81 and the classification of all research related to Project Echo. It was signed by someone from the Department of Defense. As I put the file down, the intercom crackled to life again. "Daniel, are you still there? You need to get to the transmission control room. It's the only way to shut everything down." It was Wells' voice again, but now I was suspicious. "How do I know I can trust you?" "You can't," the voice admitted, "but right now I'm your only chance of getting out of here alive. The sun sets in less than an hour. Once it's dark, they'll be able to fully manifest." "Who are they?" "We don't have a name for them. They exist in the frequency between realities. We accidentally gave them a doorway, and they've been trying to widen it ever since. The equipment here acts as an amplifier for the frequency. That's why it keeps turning on no matter how many times I shut it down." I thought about the impossibility of what he was saying, but then again, I was trapped in a building that had transformed around me, talking to a man who should have been long gone. "Where's the transmission control room?" "Basement level. The door is behind the main monitoring station. Hurry." I peered out of the filing room. The hallway was empty. I made my way back to the main monitoring room and found the door Wells had mentioned, a heavy metal door with a keypad lock. The keypad was active, its buttons glowing green. "What's the code?" I asked the empty air, hoping the intercom was still active. 8-1-5-2, Wells' voice responded immediately. The year the station was established. I punched in the code and the door unlocked with a heavy click. Behind it was a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. I took out my flashlight and descended cautiously. The basement was colder than the rest of the building, my breath visible in the beam of my flashlight. It was a single large room filled with transmitting equipment, massive radio transmitters, backup generators, and control panels. At the center was a large metal console with dozens of switches and dials. "I'm here," I called out. "What now?" The intercom in the basement crackled. "You need to power down the main transmitter." "There's a sequence." His voice was cut off by another burst of that high-pitched whine. It was even more painful here, causing me to drop to my knees as my vision swam and my nose began to bleed. Through watering eyes, I saw something impossible. The air in the center of the room began to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. The ripples intensified, forming a vertical distortion about 7 feet tall. Within the distortion, I could make out a shape, vaguely humanoid but wrong somehow, with proportions that didn't make sense to my brain. It was as if someone had taken a human silhouette and stretched parts of it while compressing others, creating something that only resembled humanity in the most superficial way. As the whining sound reached a crescendo, the shape stepped forward, and for a brief, horrifying moment, it solidified enough for me to see it clearly. What stood before me was not human. It had the rough shape of a man but was composed of what looked like black static, constantly shifting and reforming. Where a face should have been was a void darker than the blackest night, with points of light like distant stars swirling within it. The intercom burst to life again, but it wasn't Wells' voice this time. It was a chorus of voices, all speaking in perfect unison. "Daniel Mercer, we have waited so long for another." The shape took another step toward me. I scrambled backward until my back hit the wall. "Thomas WLLS has served his purpose. Now you will serve yours." "What are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. "We are the observers. We watch. We wait. We collect." The shape moved closer, and I felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. It wasn't just fear. It was deeper, more primal, like my very soul recognized this thing as fundamentally wrong. Humans are such fascinating vessels, so brief, yet so intense. Thomas has been our window for 23 years, but his time is ending. We require a new perspective. 23 years, I repeated. But the station was only shut down 20 years ago. Time moves differently across the frequency. What has been decades for Thomas has been mere moments for others. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Wells hadn't left when the station was decommissioned. He'd been trapped here just as I was now, serving as some kind of conduit or observer for these entities. The shape was now just feet away from me. I could feel a cold emanating from it that went beyond physical sensation. It was as if it was drawing the warmth not just from the air, but from within my very being. You will watch for us, Daniel. You will be our eyes and ears in this reality, and in return we will show you wonders beyond human comprehension. No, I said, finding my voice and my resolve. I won't. I lunged to the side, making a break for the main console. If Wells was right, I needed to shut down the transmitter to close whatever doorway these things were using. The shape moved with impossible speed, appearing in front of me before I'd taken 3 steps. It didn't touch me, but I felt a pressure against my mind, a presence forcing its way into my thoughts. Images flooded my consciousness. Vast, incomprehensible landscapes, beings of light and darkness moving through dimensions I couldn't understand, civilizations rising and falling in the blink of an eye, stars being born and dying in what felt like seconds. It was too much. My human mind couldn't process the scale or nature of what I was being shown. I screamed, falling to my knees again as blood now poured from my nose and ears. Through the mental assault, I heard another voice, Wells, speaking urgently through the intercom. Daniel, the red switch on the far right of the console. Flip it down, then turn the dial beneath it counterclockwise until it clicks. Do it now. Fighting against the pressure in my mind, I crawled toward the console. The shape seemed to realize what I was doing and intensified its assault. More images, more sensations. I felt like my brain was being torn apart and reassembled. You cannot escape us, Daniel. We are already inside you. With the last of my strength, I reached up and found the red switch. I flipped it down, then fumbled for the dial beneath it. My vision was going dark around the edges as I turned the dial counterclockwise. 1 click, 2 clicks, 3. On the 4th click, the high-pitched whine suddenly cut off. The shape before me seemed to waver, its edges becoming less defined. No, what have you done? The pressure in my mind eased slightly, enough for me to reach for the next control Wells had mentioned, a large black button labeled Emergency Shutdown. If you press that, you'll be trapped here with me, Wells' voice warned. The system will lock down completely, nothing in or out. Better than letting those things through, I gasped and slammed my palm down on the button. Alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights began to flash as heavy metal shutters slammed down over every possible exit. The shape before me was deteriorating rapidly, its form becoming more transparent with each second. This is not the end, Daniel Mercer. We will find another way, another frequency, another vessel. The shape collapsed in on itself, imploding into a single point of darkness that winked out of existence. The alarms continued to sound for another minute before falling silent, leaving me alone in the red-tinted darkness of the lockdown facility. The intercom crackled one final time. You did it, Wells said, his voice sounding more human now, tinged with both relief and sadness. You closed the doorway, but now you're trapped just like I've been. Where are you? I asked, getting to my feet shakily. I want to meet you face to face. There was a long pause before he answered. I'm everywhere in the station now, Daniel, and nowhere. After 23 years as their window, there wasn't much of the original Thomas Wells left. What you're talking to is an echo, a recording with some awareness. I'm sorry. I made my way back upstairs, following the emergency lights. The main monitoring room was dark except for a single terminal that still glowed green. On its screen was a message, emergency protocol activated, station 81 sealed, estimated containment duration, indefinite, so that's it, I asked the empty room. I'm just stuck here forever, not forever, Wells' voice replied, softer now, just until someone else comes looking, someone else who might reactivate the equipment, someone who might open the door again. And then what? They get trapped too, another link in the chain, unless they're smarter than we were, unless they figure out how to destroy the station completely. I looked around at the equipment, the machines, the technology that had somehow bridged a gap between dimensions it was never meant to cross. How long, I asked, how long until someone comes? For me it was 23 years, Wells replied, but like they said, time moves differently here now. It might be tomorrow for you. It might be a century. I sank into the chair at the main terminal, the weight of my situation finally hitting me. I was trapped in a facility that shouldn't exist as it did, communing with the ghost of a man who'd suffered the same fate before me, waiting for the next unfortunate soul to stumble upon this place. What do we do until then? I asked. The terminal in front of me changed its display. Begin log, day 1, station 81 monitoring continues. Current observer, Daniel Mercer. We watch, Wells replied simply. We wait. We record, it's all we can do. And so I began my vigil, trapped in a decommissioned weather station where the equipment never stays off for long. I don't know how long I've been here now. Days blend into weeks, into months. The station provides for my basic needs somehow, though I try not to think too hard about how or why. Sometimes I hear the high-pitched whine again, faintly, from somewhere deep within the walls. Sometimes I see shapes moving at the edge of my vision, and sometimes in my dreams I see vast, impossible landscapes and beings made of light and darkness. They're still out there, watching, waiting, and through me, they're still watching us. If you're reading this, it means you found Station 81. It means you've accessed the systems. It means you might be next. Turn everything off, seal it all away again, or better yet, burn it to the ground, because the frequency is still there. And they're still listening, always listening.